Please be seated. Students, honorable guests, faculty and staff, welcome to the MBA 2018-19 end of course ceremony. With the opening remarks, I present the Dean, Professor Peter Tufano.
Good morning. One last time. Good morning. Excellent. Welcome, almost MBA graduates. Welcome to your families, to the faculty and the staff, to this majestic Sheldonian Theater for this closing ceremony. To the class, congratulations on your remarkable achievements in completing this rigorous and demanding program. And in addition to completing all of your coursework almost, you created a tight-knit community and demonstrated for the third time in a row that Oxford Said is the #1 on whatever pitch, field, dance floor, classroom, boardroom, or anything you find yourself on. Congratulations. And for our guests, just look in the program. You'll see all the accomplishments of this class. So we're here in the Sheldonian Theater, which is an apt symbol of the power of science, of reason, of humanism, and of progress, the principles of the Enlightenment. It's a building that also speaks to you all. This building was designed and opened by Christopher Wren 350 years ago this year. This is not a religious building. This is not a temple to religion, but rather it's really a building about mankind and learning. So let's look up. The painting above is by Robert Streeter, and it's a symbol of reason. It's about truth descending upon the arts and sciences and expelling ignorance from the university. If only we could expel ignorance from other places too. The ceiling itself is a miracle of science and progress. What don't you see? Remember, this building is 350 years old. What don't you see? You see no visible support. 350 years ago, there was no science to hold this roof up. But in fact, an Oxford mathematician had come up with a geometric grid, which had never been used, and that Wren incorporated into this building. About a century and a half ago, they went upstairs, and what did they find but tons of books? The Bodleian Library had stored books upstairs. So up above this unsupported roof were tons and tons of books. So not only did it support the roof, but all that. It's beautiful, it's bold, it's innovative, it's useful. Those seem like the kinds of things that MBA should want to do. And particularly fitting, Wren of Wadham was only 32 when he did this project. He'd come to Oxford, gone off and done something else, had come back to Oxford and was switching careers. He had been a scientist and decided, let me try my hand at architecture. This was his first major building. And he would go on to design over 50 churches in London, including St. Paul's Cathedral. But this was his breakout moment. This was the building that defined him. So somebody who had come to Oxford and studied, gone away, come back, studied some more, and then decided to change careers. Does that sound about right? You may wonder if there's a website for these speeches. If so, I haven't found it. And if you find it, don't tell me. But there are some general rules if you ever find yourself in my situation. In true business school fashion, we can even fashion an alliterative mnemonic that we can use, like the 4 Ps or 5 S's or whatever. And I think of them as the 3 Ts of speeches like this. Tribute, thanks, and think. Pay tribute to the class. Thank everyone who made this possible. And then think, reflect a little bit on what we've been through together and what is meaningful. And by the way, if you want a 4th T, the 4th T is trivia, which I've already done. Now this 3-part structure bears a certain resemblance to your capstone. Think about the things you've done this week. Probably you've celebrated. Probably you've given thanks. Probably you reflected. It also bears resemblance to prayer and to meditation. There's a certain form of meditation called an examen or examen. In it, we often at the end of the day think about what happened. We recall the parts of the day that went well. We recall the parts of the day that we're grateful for. We recall the parts of the day where we think tomorrow we can do better. And we conclude asking for help so that the next day will in fact be a better day. That's really the structure of prayer. It's also the structure of your capstone, and it's going to be the structure of my speech. So in the first part, we just think about all the amazing things that happen. And that, for me, is a tribute to all of you. A tribute to you amazing women and men who forged this MBA class. We can marvel at your wide-ranging backgrounds, and I think we'll hear more about that. We can celebrate your dedication to self-improvement. We can celebrate and be humbled by the work that you've done by reading thousands of pages and writing thousands of words. We can be mystified by how you did all this while you were looking for jobs, exploring new fields, winning competitions, winning the MBATs, keeping up with family and friends, and occasionally finding time to explore the pubs and punts of Oxford. We're going to hear more about this class and their year in Oxford and the community they've built from Tanya and JJ. But to begin, let's celebrate and give thanks to these amazing women and men. So for our guests, can we celebrate these amazing people? In the second part, we give thanks. Let's quietly think about what you're grateful for today, what's given you joy, who has brought you joy. And I think for most of us, that answer is the people around us. And I'd like to start by giving thanks to you for coming here, for you for being part of this community, and for you for staying part of this community for the rest of your life as alumni. So thank you so much for that. I'm also deeply grateful for my marvelous faculty and staff. They have chosen to devote their lives to working here at the school and their careers, to making the school a great place, to delivering a fine education, to make sure that your needs are met, to make sure that they live up to a set of values, to make sure that you're fed well. I'd like to especially thank Ian Rogan, your course director, who is no longer here, and Tim Galpin, the academic director of the program, who also couldn't be here today. Now, the faculty play an important role in your education, obviously, and you voted to invite one of our professors, Mark Zeppin, to address you. So on behalf of the faculty, thank you, Mark, and thank you all for the work that you do. And then there's the professional staff, the people who help to admit you, the people who help to get you sorted, the people who are with you every day, Farzana, Jane, Farzana, Harriet, Rachel, the admissions team, everybody, that whole crowd up there. And then the IT team and the people who do all the food in the building and everything else. So can we thank them? Would that be okay? But as we sit quietly here in our meditation or prayer or speech, I suspect our primary thoughts are devoted to the people who are here and who couldn't come here. They're your loved ones, the people who have nurtured you, supported you, loved you throughout this program, given birth to you, perhaps. They're your parents, they're your partners, they're your children, they're your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, whoever might be here, your colleagues, your friends. What have they done so that you could be here? How much have they sacrificed for you to be here? How much have they believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself? What extra mile did they go through so that you never had to have any hardship? Well, meditation is a quiet thing. I would ask the class if you'd like to stand up and to thank the people around you. But neither a speech nor a meditation is finished without some reflection. What have I done well? What can I do better? We can think about this individually, or as a class, or as a world. And I wanted to share a few reflections. As a school, a year, like all of life, has ups and downs. I hope that this class and you all ended up on a high. But I'd be naive not to note that in the dark days of winter, it wasn't so easy. I want to thank the class, especially the Project Phoenix team, for their thoughtful and sustained commitment to thinking about how to make the school a better place. I'd like to thank my faculty on the other side who have been receptive in thinking about how to work together. And together we will challenge ourselves and make ourselves even better. But I think we need to think about more than you and this school. We need to think about the world. This is the time to think about where we are in the world. And the last 2 weeks have been a watershed moment, maybe, for business. Maybe. After decades of largely unwavering support for the notion of shareholder primacy, 2 weeks ago, 181 CEOs, largely from the US, members of a group called the Business Roundtable, signed a public statement, a declaration acknowledging a concept that we have known since the founding of the school 23 years ago, that a business owes its duties to far more than a small number of shareholders, but rather we owe duties to customers, to employees, the communities in which we live, and the planet that sustains us. The good news was our school was identified on the front page of the Financial Times 2 weeks ago because of the agenda that we have carried out, and we are continuing to carry out. And on that same day, the front page or the cover of The Economist covered our work. This is not the first time Oxford has weighed in on this topic. In fact, it goes back a few hundred years to moral philosophers who studied and wrote here, including Adam Smith of Balliol, who studied a few hundred yards down the street. Now, Smith, the visionary thinker who conceived of the notion of the invisible hand, articulated the key concepts of capitalism: specialization, trading, competition, self-interest. But he equally was preoccupied with the idea of our responsibilities to one another, that the invisible hand might work for the operation of markets, but that our very visible hands need to reach out to one another, to support one another, and to help one another. Smith was writing on the dawn of the first industrial revolution, in the wake of the creation of new technologies, but also of powerful organizations called corporations, who could act with impunity in their economies and societies. He and his colleagues were seeing the power and potential danger of unfettered capitalism. It's no surprise that in his celebrated 1776 magnum opus, The Wealth of Nations, he wrote about capitalism. It's also no surprise that in his 1759 magnum opus, The Theory of Moral Sentiment, he wrote about the duties we owed to one another. He was sitting on the precipice of the change in both technology and of corporate form. And we are sitting at the same point, in the same place. Like in Smith's time, we're observing the use of new technologies like internet, machine learning, AI, and more, creating opportunities for massive creations of wealth. And for many, the quality of life will be enhanced. But for many others, there'll be dislocations and they'll be left behind. Furthermore, the planetary resources that Smith could ignore because they seemed so abundant 250 years ago are not so abundant now. And the 181 signatories of the Business Roundtable statement seem to come to the same conclusion as Smith, that unless we recognize that we're in this together and we work together, we're sunk. So what does this mean for us? Is it a pat on the back that Oxford had the right ideas 250 years ago and has them now? Is it a well done to our graduates who adopted this spirit? Is it a sense of cynicism that says it's all just words anyway? I don't think this is a time for congratulation. I don't think this is a time for cynicism either. It's a time for reflection. As you become alumni of this great institution, what will you be known for? Now, I said this is not a religious place, but there's a church hymn. It's not very old as church hymns go. It's only about half a century old. And the title of the hymn is, "They'll Know We're Christians by Our Love." So how will they know that you're Oxonians? Is it because you're powerful? Is it because you're rich? Is it because you know how to wear subfusk? Is it because you have a certain preference for blue? Don't know. How will they know that we're Oxonians? As I reflect on what I can do better, as I reflect on what we can do better, I come back to one word that doesn't, and in meditation often there's a word that you focus on. And this one word doesn't occupy enough time in my daytime job. It doesn't roll off our tongues easily. It certainly is not part of the discussions of the wealthy and business leaders. It is not our rallying cry. It is not the word that is usually used in graduation speeches. We've let others use this word, although I think it should guide us in how we use our wealth and our power and our influence. So what's the word? Again, if this were a class, we could have a discussion. What word would you use? How will they know we're Oxonians? In my meditation, the word I come back to again and again is justice. Justice. Now, what is justice? Justice is the administration of fairness. The administration of fairness. When have we heard the use of the word administration? MBA. We don't often use the A word when talking. Well, not that. We don't use the administration word when talking about our degrees, but an MBA is about the administration of business. And I think we are called to not only administer business, but to administer fairness. But then this leaves us with one of these huge Oxford-type questions. Well, what exactly is justice? And over the years, moral philosophers have worked through this issue about what is justice. Plato, Locke, Mill, and more recently Rawls have struggled to understand this abstract notion of how we administer fairness. Is it about doing the most good for the most people? Utilitarianism. Is it a natural or divine concept? Is it a contractual notion? What is justice? How do we administer fairness? And if I'm calling upon you to administer fairness, what exactly does that mean? So to me, Rawls' theory of justice has great appeal. I'm going to apologize for simplifying an extraordinarily complex notion. But if any of you, perhaps more of you than them, have children, you may have found yourself in this situation. There's a piece of cake, there's two kids, they both want the cake, and they're both screaming. So how do you deal with this? You can take the cake away and say, you're not behaving, nobody gets it. You can take out your knife and cut it in half and give a piece to each one. Or you can say to one child, you cut and the other one picks. You cut and the other one picks. And in Rawls' theory of justice, it's that division. You cut and then somebody else picks that fundamentally defines justice. But there's a prior step before cutting and picking, and that's baking. And we in business have thought that all we needed to do was to bake cakes. Right? And if we made better cakes and bigger cakes, then we were done. Because somebody else would figure out the cutting and the choosing. But that's not been true. Because we also set up the rules that determine how the cake is cut and how the cake is sliced, divvied up. So if we exclude people from the table, as we have for the last few decades, and saying, you don't really deserve a slice of this cake, that's not just. If we insist on taking not only our slice, but our children's slice and our grandchildren's slice, that's not fair. So we are every much a part of slicing and dividing the cake as we are as making it. And so the red thread that runs from the Business Roundtable 2 weeks ago, to Adam Smith 250 years ago, to the work that's been done for the last 2 decades here, to Rawls' theory from the 1970s, is all about the recognition that we cannot ignore our duties to one another. While we may bake the cake, we don't do so alone. It makes many talents to do so. And while we deserve a slice of the cake for our efforts, we don't have the right to be greedy and ignore others. To do so is to fail to administer justice, to fail to administer fairness, and therefore to be unjust. I didn't do justice to this concept of justice, But the thing to take away from it is that we can only conceive of justice from the perspective of the other. In our nightly meditations about how we're going to use our wealth, our power, our influence, we'd be well advised to reflect on justice and how our actions affect others, about the rules that we either set or we implicitly endorse, and who we are rewarding and why. Today we're celebrating you, but in this very room, a few years ago, we celebrated someone named Byron Stevenson. Byron Stevenson is the inspirational founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. He's a widely acclaimed public interest lawyer who's dedicated his life to saving people on death row, the incarcerated and the condemned. Stevenson was here in this room to receive an honorary degree. He argued that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. Well, given that we are fortunate, and given that we are, in fact, the wealthy, the opposite of poverty, then we must be called upon to be agents of justice. And it's not surprising that in virtually every religion, and in all of moral philosophy, there's a requirement that to those who are given much, much more is expected. And that, I think, is an important message to us all. So members of this class of 2018-19, may I join with your family and friends and faculty and staff in congratulating them, in wishing them the best, in hoping that you stay connected with us for the rest of your lives. But most of all, that may justice help you to guide you in the years to come. Because as business women and businessmen, we're not only called upon to meditate, to think, but to do. And I'm confident that you'll use your wealth, your power, your influence to show that Oxford does not seek to enrich ourselves, but rather to advance our collective prosperity and justice. Thank you very much.
It is now my pleasure to announce the next speaker. Following the tradition from last year, we have surveyed the class to ask, which faculty member they would like to hear from at their end of course ceremony. And they chose Mark Shepard. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Mark Shepard.
Farzana, thank you. Dean Tufano, Associate Deans Reynolds and Harvey, Site Business School colleagues, student family members and friends, and most importantly, the best MBA class ever. It is a great honor to be able to represent my SBS colleagues here today and to celebrate with you. I have to admit, though, that initially when I was informed that I'm supposed to join an event with the dean, student reps, and the whole MBA class, I was a little bit apprehensive and nervous. Fortunately, thank you to David Pierce. David made clear the nature of the event, and again, thank you very much. It's incredible. It's an incredible honor to be here with you and your friends and family members. Above all, congratulations to having completed a very busy and challenging year. You've done a lot of pub crawls. You've cleaned everybody else's clock at the MBATs. I think we got to tell the new incoming class that they should give some sort of opportunity to other schools as well, otherwise they might not show up again. And of course, most importantly, I think if I reflect on my own MBA experience, you've made friends for life. Now, academically, you've taken dozens of courses. You're supposed to go to hundreds of class discussions and group exercises. And you've read thousands of fascinating journal articles and case studies. And yes, I know some of you are looking at each other a bit perplexed. What? We're supposed to read case studies? So, if you're really nice to Christian Klee, you still might be able to pick up a couple of course binders. The content actually is pretty interesting. Apropos of Christian and our other professional colleagues here on behalf of the faculty, I think as we all appreciate, your Oxford experience is as much a function of what happens in the classroom and the fantastic work that gets done by our colleagues outside the classroom. So thank you very much for enabling us to do that. And please, why don't you give the SBS team a hand? Now, Peter already has given credit to your families. Let me add a little bit to this. And I think in many ways, doing the MBA, as much fun as it is for you, is actually a much bigger challenge for those of your families or significant others. Having to move here, having to find childcare, having to deal with you studying around the clock and never going drinking. So thank you very much to the family members as well for your patience and for your support and for enabling our students to be as successful as they are. And a hand to your family members as well, please. Talking about family members, I'm looking for Andile. I think, Andile, your kids were at SBS so often. I'm sure I'm doing things above my pay grade, but we probably should give your kids a degree as well. Now, as we all know, as our dean consistently emphasizes, at SBS, our mission is to tackle world-scale problems. So let me switch gears a little bit and then talk about some of those. And when we look around, Dean has just mentioned a few of those, but there's a host of truly world-scale problems that we in our modern society have to face. We have the environmental threat to our planet, the return of international conflict, the deterioration, if not disappearance, of political and social consensus in many society. Resolving all of this will require great leaders and great leadership. And that's the good news. You actually are lucky to be able to go back into the workforce in this sort of age in which great leaders and great leaders will matter more greatly than ever before. So congratulations to that. We're happy for you that you have that opportunity to make a difference. Now, when we think about guiding principles for good leadership, let me share a few ideas. And as you know, before I had the privilege of joining, some of you know, before I had the privilege of joining the faculty, I spent some time as a senior executive in the aviation industry. Given the occasion, let me refrain from mentioning the name of the company. I certainly would not want to come across as doing a plug-in for any sort of commercial enterprise in these hallowed halls. Also, I did make the mistake of mentioning the company, the airline I used to work for before at the beginning of a class a few years ago, and then one hand goes up and said, "You lost my luggage." But in the spirit of European unity, more important than ever, let me share with you 3 stories, one from a British, one from a French, and one from a German aviation company that hopefully illustrates a couple of examples of what I think constitutes good leadership and good leaders. Given that we are in the United Kingdom, let me start with an homage to the home team. Now, in the morning of the 10th of June, 1990, British Airways Flight 5390 was taking off from Birmingham Airport, bound for Malaga, Spain. The aircraft assigned to the flight was a British-made Bach 111 short-range aircraft. The crew consisted of 2 pilots and 4 flight attendants, including Captain Tim Lancaster, First Officer Alistair Atchison, and cabin crew members Nigel Ogden and Susan Gibbons. There were 81 passengers on board. British Airways Flight 5390 took off at 8:20 local time from Birmingham, had an uneventful takeoff, and was climbing to flight level 173. That is roughly 5,300 meters above ground. And as you can imagine, it is fairly cold up there. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the cockpit rapidly filled with condensation mist. The left cockpit window, for those of you interested in this, that is the window in front of the captain, had blown out, had separated from the fuselage, and as it would turn out, had actually blown the captain, sucked the captain out of the airplane. So the captain's feet and lower body was still inside the cockpit, and the rest was stuck outside, again at an altitude of 5,390 meters. For those of you who have climbed Mount Everest, you know, the air gets a little bit thin up there, it gets cold, and of course they were going at a speed of several hundred miles. And so the captain, Captain Lancaster, was stuck halfway outside the aircraft, going a few hundred miles in sub-zero temperatures. Now, fortunately, competent professionals, as British Airways crew are, they managed to regain control of the aircraft and initiated an emergency descent towards Southampton Airport. And Captain Lancaster's life that day was saved by heroic teamwork and incredible determination on the part of a number of members of his crew. Let me read from the official accident report. The number 3 steward rushed onto the flight deck and grasped the commander around his waist to hold on to him. Meanwhile, the purser re-entered the flight deck, having hooked his arms to the seatbelt of the 4th crew member jump seat, was able to assist the steward in the restraint of the commander. The 2 men tried to pull the commander back within the aircraft, but the effect of the slipstream frustrated their efforts. The number 2 steward entered the flight deck, and he was able to relieve the number 3 steward, whose arms were losing their strength as they suffered from frostbite and bruising from the windshield screen. The number 2 steward grasped the commander's right leg. He held him by the ankles until the aircraft had landed. What the report fails to mention is that the number 2 steward, a gentleman named Nigel Ogden, suffered frostbite to his face, frostbite in his eyes, and held on to his captain while suffering from a dislocated shoulder. Now, they made it safely to Southampton Airport, and of course, in the best tradition of British stiff upper lip, Captain Lancaster returned to flight duty just a couple of months after that horrible accident. First Officer Atchison and cabin crew members Gibbons and Ogden were awarded Queen's Commendations medals for valuable service in the air. Now, I think there are some leadership lessons in this. First of all, when your team members really are in trouble, when they really need your support, no matter how much energy, no matter how much effort it takes on your part, you always hang on. You never let him or her down. Secondly, all of us at some points in our lives, at home or at work, find ourselves in challenging circumstances. Hopefully not as challenging as dangling outside an airplane cockpit at 5,300 meters of altitude. But no matter how trying circumstances we might find ourselves in, personally, professionally, or otherwise, no matter how bad the situation might be, I think there's a lesson in this. We never ever quit, and we never ever give up. Now, as on a side note, once that landed in Southampton and Captain Lancaster had received proper medical care, he actually woke up from a coma, and the first thing he did was asking for food. So there's another lesson learned in there, especially for MBAs. Never forgo the opportunity for free food. Now, in the spirit of inspirational stories from airplane accidents, let me share a second story. A few years later, on the 20th of March 2001, a Lufthansa Airbus A320 took off from Frankfurt Airport, bound for Paris in France. The flight crew consisted of two pilots, a 41-year-old captain and a 27-year-old relatively young first officer, and 4 cabin crew. The captain was very experienced with 903,000 flight hours and held an aerobatics rating. The first officer was very junior, barely having accumulated 2,000 flight hours. The flight had 115 passengers on board. The takeoff run down the runway went smoothly. Right after takeoff, captain was the pilot flying. Right after takeoff, the airplane hit crosswind or turbulences and started banking to the left. The captain responded by doing opposite input in the side stick. For those who are interested in that sort of thing, Boeing airplanes have control yokes, Airbus airplanes, modern ones at least have side sticks, kind of like a Nintendo joystick type of thing. The captain started doing opposite inputs to correct the banking situation, and despite the inputs, the aircraft continued banking to the left, reached a banking angle of 22 degrees, and at the lowest level, the left wingtip was barely 1 meter off the ground. At this point in time, the first officer saved the day. He resolutely took control away from the captain. And again, for those of you interested in cockpit procedures, the way this goes is this: I have control. You push the takeover button on the joystick and he took control. And due to the decisive action that that young man, the first officer, took, control over the airplane was regained, stable flight altitude was restored, and the crew was able to do an emergency landing in Frankfurt Airport. As it would turn out, during the accident investigation, the cause for that was a miswired computer in the airplane, meaning if you give input to wanting to make the airplane go to the right, it actually banks more to the left. Now, leaving aside the technical details of this root cause analysis, I think it is worthwhile emphasizing that it was the decisive action taken by a very junior first officer who took command away from a much more senior captain that saved the day and most likely saved the lives of 100 plus crew and people on board of that flight. And again, there are leadership lessons in that almost accident, in that incident as well, that apply, as one might argue in this day and age, not only to work, but to matters far beyond work, going into society at large. First, when disaster becomes increasingly likely, let alone obvious, no matter what your seniority might be, no matter how senior you might be in rank or age, or how junior you might be in rank or age, you do not stand by. You do not let bad things happen. Instead, you take command and you take decisive action. Second, as senior leaders, it is incumbent upon you to create an atmosphere and a culture in which junior team members will feel empowered to take decisive action to prevent disasters like that. Now, as I said, I wanted to share, in the spirit of European unity, I wanted to share stories of a British, a German, and a French organization, and this is one about the French. And this is a story about, I think, great personal courage, about heroism and nobility. Now, on 27th of June, 1976, Air France Flight 139 departed from Tel Aviv in Israel. It was bound for Paris, with a stopover in Athens in Greece. At Athens, they picked up additional passengers and continued the trip to Paris. On board were just over 240 passengers and 12 cockpit and cabin crew, led by Captain Michel Balcot, a 52-year-old Air France veteran at the time. 8 minutes after takeoff from Athens airport, Air France Flight 139 was hijacked by 4 terrorists and forced to fly to Entebbe, Uganda. Upon arrival at Entebbe, the hijackers moved the passengers and the crew out of the airplane into an airport terminal building, and after they started separating Jewish and non-Jewish passengers. The Jewish passengers included a Holocaust survivor. 3 days later, 148 non-Jewish passengers and non-Israeli passengers were allowed to leave. The terrorists also offered Captain Balcot and his crew to return to freedom as well. Captain Balcot informed his crew of the offer to be freed. The entire crew, including the captain, the pilots, and the flight attendants, decided to stay with the remaining Jewish hostages. As he related during an interview in 2016, there was no way we were going to leave. We were staying with the passengers to the end. This was a matter of conscience, professionalism, and morality. A few days later, on July 4th, for those of you from the US, on Independence Day, a daring nighttime operation by an Israeli Defense Force elite commander unit rescued the remaining hostages. During the rescue attempt, 3 of the hostages lost their lives. In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Yoni Netanyahu, the man who was commanding the ground attack force, and the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's current prime minister, made the ultimate sacrifice in a firefight. After the hijacking, and after a 2-week-long, or as one might say, rather 2-week short break, Captain Barkov returned to flying duty. The first destination for his first flight he requested was Tel Aviv. Captain Barkov has passed away in March of this year. Now, obviously, none of us hope to find ourselves in this sort of situation. Certainly not on the victim side, and hopefully in terms of professional goals, not on the other side as well. However, I think there are some profound leadership lessons to be learned from Captain Barkov and his crew, and this builds on what the Dean just said. Now, when you return to the workforce, the organizations that you lead will have to comply with applicable laws, regulations, and standards. And depending on depending on the jurisdiction in which you might be working, those might include some sort of fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. Now, obviously, speaking for the school, it goes without saying that we would prefer our alumni to be law-abiding, upright citizens. Going to jail normally is not a career-enhancing move, depending on the career. Having said this, I think the examples of Captain Barkov and his crew are reminders that there's a higher responsibility and a higher moral obligation and indeed nobility that comes with the privilege of leadership. So, first of all, as leaders, you always have a duty of care for your team, especially in circumstances of great personal adversity. Second, I think this duty of care extends to those that have put their fate into your hands. In the case of Air France Flight 139, those were the passengers. In other cases, those that have entrusted themselves to you, of course your team, but those might include your customers, might be the people who use your products, and it might be the communities and societies in which you operate. Now, I sincerely hope that none of you has been afraid of air travel and that I've exacerbated those fears by telling you these stories. Let me assure you, first of all, flying is really, really safe, despite of all of this. Second, this is also not some sort of conspiracy, to reduce CO2 emissions by scaring you away from flying. But I think there's an important larger point, because one of the, I think, defining characteristics of your generation of leaders is a quest, and a very admirable one at that, for meaning and purpose in your professional lives. And of course, as the Dean mentioned in his speech, we are incredibly proud to be part of that quest on your part. And of course, none of us would want to build a career in an entirely non-ethical or morally questionable type of organization. However, please allow me to suggest that the pursuit of something meaningful or purposeful can be as much a matter of how as a matter of where or what. And of course, yes, ideally, we would like to find the perfect company or firm, or for those of us that are interested in non-corporate careers, the perfect government, the perfect NGO, the perfect international organization, or the like. And obviously, we would not want to discourage the search for a perfect place and a perfect job. At the same time, I'd like to suggest that it is possible to have a very meaningful and indeed purposeful career in an organization that in some ways perhaps falls short of ultimate levels of perfection. Now, if you reflect on British Airways' Nigel Ogden saving his captain's life by holding on to him after he had gotten sucked out of the cockpit, and doing so despite a dislocated shoulder and severe frostbite in one of his eyes. We think of the Lufthansa junior first officer who prevented disaster and most likely a significant loss of life by initiating decisive action and taking command from his senior captain. We think of the Air France crew led by Captain Barkov, refusing to leave behind their passengers in the face of the evil of terrorism. If that is not meaningful or purposeful, I cannot think of anything else that would be. So perhaps, allow me to suggest, the pursuit of meaning and purpose can be as much a matter of how you work and how you conduct yourself as leaders as it is a function of where you work and what type of organization you lead. Now, after this wonderful experience here, some of you have defended and will continue to defend our freedom and way of life in the armed forces. Ahmed, Christian, Ollie, or in the media. Laura, I think it's called the lamestream, whatever, fake news media. Now, thank you for your service on that. Others will continue healing people. Andile. Many of you will build or will help your classmates build and finance great businesses and great innovative ideas. Others will make national governments and international organizations better than they would be without you. And at least one of you will continue working, well, literally directly for God. Rev? So if you think you have an impressive career, talk to the Rev. We trust that no matter what career you will pursue in the end, all of you will do incredibly well, and all of you will be leaders of the highest caliber. So, in conclusion, on behalf of all of us here at SBS, on behalf of our colleagues, thank you very much for the privilege of having been an admittedly small but a part of your professional journey. Good luck to you and your families for this next exciting phase in your professional and personal lives. And in the spirit of classroom etiquette, thank you for not falling asleep during the last minutes.
Now, with a view from the class, JJ van de Vijver and Tania Aritau.
Absolutely. Good morning to you all. Celebrated students, members of the school staff and faculty, family, friends, and loved ones. Welcome to our community. 355 days ago, on the 17th of September 2018, 313 individuals stepped through the glass doors of Said Business School for the first time to become MBA students at the University of Oxford. Today, on the 7th of September 2019, we are seated together as Oxford students for the last time. When you walk out of the wooden doors of the Sheldonian, we mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of the next. Now that is hectic. What does it mean to be a student at Oxford University? What does it mean to be an MBA graduate? What do the last 355 days mean? What does this room filled with people mean? What does this moment mean to you? This year was filled with many moments, grains of sand tumbling through the hourglass of time, cold morning walks across the cobblestones on the way to school, the sound of chatter near the lockers between classes, looking around a lecture theatre filled with faces and bright name tags, the sound of bells in the bustling heart of Oxford, your first steps into a dining hall for formal dinner, a quiet walk alongside the sleepy canals, the dark, dark, dark windows at 4:45 in the endless winter, a speaker that made you sit up to get a little bit closer to their insights, putting on subfusk for an examination, submitting your last assignment, a time you felt you'd made a mistake in coming here, a time you knew for sure you were right where you were supposed to be. How do we navigate amongst these infinite moments and memories? How do we know whether we've moved forwards or whether we've moved backwards? The hint is all around us in the reaching spires of the city of Oxford. From a good vantage point, I recommend Westgate because it has escalators. You might see the Radcliffe Camera, University Church, Magdalen Tower, Tom Tower, Lincoln Library, Exeter College Chapel, and many, many more. The hint is they all point up towards the stars and towards the place of our dreams. The greatest heights we could possibly imagine for ourselves and for each other and for the world that we inhabit. Far beyond our individual moments here, there are bright balls of light, so bright and so far away that you can always refer to them to know where you are. And like a star-filled sky, if our dreams can light the way, perhaps we can walk a path of meaning. Every single person in this room has walked an individual path this year, leaving old roles, finding new work, giving life, losing a loved one. Ending relationships, starting new love. Some would close the SBS library, others would close Hanks. Some preferred large gatherings like this one, others preferred silent strolls. Some people found clarity, and yet others found new questions. While wandering all of these Oxford corridors, pathways, and ancient halls, we've learned many, many things about the world, but perhaps more importantly, about ourselves. My hope for our MBA class is that our dreams shine a little more brightly with this knowledge of self, and that when we lose our way in the dead of night, we might look up and remember what we saw when we were free to dream. As you decide what this year means to you, make wise choices. Today is not the end, but the beginning of our MBA journey together. We need not leave with regrets, only lessons that we take away with us. And finally, we need not fear uncertainty, because there is opportunity up ahead. So, what does this moment mean? Well, like most things in the MBA, it depends. There is a poem by a legendary Oxonian who once wandered these streets dreaming of hobbits, dragons, and magical rings. As you step out of these doors and begin your next adventure, guided by the stars of your dreams, it is worth remembering that the road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet, until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say. Good morning to you all, and welcome to our community.
Dear class, it's good to see you. It's good to see us here together today. Look around. Let us look at each other. Like, really look at each other. How incredibly privileged we are to sit where we sit, to celebrate as we celebrate the year that we have spent, endured, loved, dreamed of at the University of Oxford, and the legacy of being able to carry this institution's name. What an honor to be able to dream. Many things will blur with the passing of time and memory, with the coming of new seasons and new opportunities, but today, we turn a page together. We may not have recognized this during the dips and rises, the stumbles and twists of the journey, but we have been to each other not just classmate and colleague, but travel partner, study buddy, happy hour mate, also teammate, cheerleader, inspiration, challenger, ally, and friend. Here today in our class is someone you have called in the shadows of winter when you felt stuck, misplaced, or just plain sick of the cold. Someone you called and who listened when you felt unheard. Here today in our class is someone who has helped carry your load, whether that was a project, an idea, or shreds of hard news in the middle of a hectic term. Here today in our class is someone you have shared with, shared your lecture notes, your 2-for-1 happy hour drinks, your coffee credits, shared your home, story, secrets, failures, and hopes. Here today in our class is someone who has cheered you on, to wake up for that morning run, to persist through one more hour in the library, to stay for just one more drink at the Oxford retreat. Someone who has cheered you on to take the risk to apply for that job, the courage to turn down an opportunity, to bravely face a hard conversation, or to pick yourself up and try one more time. Examine your spirit, your mind, and your heart. And we will find that in each of us, different parts of ourselves have toughened up, others softened, other parts bruised or still healing. For some of us, this year was a game-changing year, transformative, the most special year yet. For some, it was good. It was different. It was fun. For others, this is the year we faced our greatest doubts and insecurities. For some, here in Oxford, we went to battle with our biggest fears. Honor your journey, and let's honor one another's. Whether smooth sailing or stormy, full of laborious uphill climbs, scary tumbles down thorn-filled slopes, or calm, steady breathing. Be grateful for your journey and honor the way that you have traveled it. We walk out of here today together with much to treasure and much to be proud of. Now, let us look around again, outside of our circle on the floor. We are surrounded by our school, our professors, the faculty, staff, and leadership of the Said Business School, representing a larger team that has supported us through the year, many of whom work in the background and in spaces that we do not see. From the admissions team that read our applications, the IT team that assigned us all of our many Oxford logins, the cleaning staff that gets all our lecture halls ready for each day, and the other hands, minds, and hearts that make up our school. To all of you, we thank you. Now, let us look around once more, but even farther out. To our guests, our families and friends, those present and those that celebrate with us from far away, from the 62 countries from where we have journeyed, and all the places we've called home. The community that has lifted each of us up to bring us to this moment and beyond. Not one of us has made it to this day on our own. To you who have prepared our way forward, who stayed behind or who moved, who made sacrifices, who gave gifts, and who have stayed steadfast. To our community that embraces us, circling the world around, we thank you. Now, let us look ahead. Look at the days and years to come. My hope for our MBA class is that we use our strength to serve. Strength is for service, not status, says a passage from the book of Romans. We will find ourselves in moments of strength. My hope for us is to find the ways our strength can serve another, family, friend, colleague, or stranger. As we know but easily forget or deny, our strength on its own can only carry us so far. Remember this beautiful community that has brought us here. When we find ourselves in moments of weakness, remember this class and know that you can draw from our collective strength. Somewhere in this class is a friend who will humbly offer the support you need, support that we will all need in the journey that lies ahead. Whether a word of comfort in a trying time, a warm welcome into a strange city, or the counsel to lead you to your next opportunity. Let us commit today to show up for one another. And without casting judgment, let us show up to strengthen each other. As we walk out of the Sheldonian Theater, as thousands of students have done before, choose to set this day apart from the rest. Choose to look up, to look around, and to look ahead. My dear class, it's so good to see you. It's good to be here together today.
I shall now present the MBA 2018-19 students. Please refrain from applauding until the final student has been presented. Thank you. Amal Abamawi. No clapping. Jihan Abbas. Catherine Abbott. Khalida Abdul Rahim. Muhammad Kazian Afif. Mrigank Agarwal. Raghav Agarwal. Valerie Agia. Hiba Ahmed. Fraidia Akosa. Ida Al-Mansouri. Sultan Fahad Al-Otaibi. Maida Al-Suwaidi. Nicholas Andreu. Itai Abel. Laura Aristizabel. Tanya Aritao. Mohammed Ariz. Gala Ariaga Delgado. Cheyenne Atapo. Aditi Awati. Chihiro Baba. Lina Baki. Hassan Bagash. Vaughn Bagley. Cheska Bagley. Jared Bainbridge. Pooja Balachandar. Jennifer Bambrick. Prashant Baptist. Arjun Burden. Manureet Bath. Jagalan Patogil. Maria Barnier. Luciana Blackwell. Arjun Balangde. Arijit Bose. Warner Bosman. Luis Sebastian Buitrego Leon. Amelie Bush. Amanda Boothie. Wes Carpenter. Pablo Cavacho. Selena Chan. Eileen Chen. Ji Chen. Joel Chang. Danny Chong. Roman Tamuka Chideme. Prerna Chowdhury. Sai Chu. Pinhatai Chunharas. Alan Clark. Rajiv Daya. Manuel Diarigonaga Quijano. Seb de Feest. Ato Strauchke Muradian. Caroline Dupraz. Lynn Durrant. Philip Eaton. Ponkun Aksum Batchai. Ahmad El Nagar. Omar El Nagar. Richard Elliott. Vivek Iluru. Samuel Ang. Ojuromu Enikpere. Kelly Fang. Muhammad Fanous. Maria Fernandez Conde. Brendan Ferreira. Nicholas Galuzis. Anirudh Garg. Buinoklo Kazialawe. Anne Burton Gerhardt. Florentina Daniela Gyoge. Pratik Gidwani. Sham Gohil. Sreya Goindi. Tommy Georgie. David Graham. Julie Green. Maximilian Grobe. Mehagat Zina. Anisha Gujral. Alma Gutierrez Toledano. Justin Hall. Brian Hamkammer. Christina He. Taylor Heath. Lisa Henderson. Ryan K. Hang. Alfred Ho. Sarah Hoffman. Christopher Hopkins. Muhammad Ibrahim. Ali Ilchi. Gregory Ives. Akanksha Jain. Sreyansh Jain. Arjun Jairaj. Sulav Jam. Pete Jones. Ian Jordan. John Kabanda. Saurav Kala. Sobhav Kala. Francis Kapinga. Emma Karanja. Christine Kavazanjian. Natalie Karloff. Aisha Khalid. Jane Haseen Khan. Dina Kanot. Nishjal Khandelwal. Meena Khatak. Rohit Khosla. Kyungmi Kim. Sunjeong Kim. Sean King. Kento Kitano. Diana Kohler. Laura Koran. Haruka Kotera. Timothy Krupa. Kanika Kumar. Nana Abnakumi. Owen Love. Amai Lala. Emma Vonelstein Landis. Clive Lau. Mark Marie Lee. Elizabeth Leong. Chris Lee. Lin Ding Xiun. Joseph Littlewood. Jayao Leo. Tony Liu. Austin Jinbon Luan. Pichanok Luanguthai. Jean-Alexander Luc Bernier. Antonio Luis Gomez. Ma Leah. Alexandra McBain. Mo Anwar Mahmood. Nina Malan. Elspeth Malcolm. Ben Maskell. Xavier Mason. Ikue Matsuda. Alison MacArthur. Willie McVitie. Brendan Meehan. Philip Milovich. Sergio Montes de Oca Miranda. Julia Montgomery. Gabrielle Morgan. Matthew Alexander Morgan. Scarlett Moo. Mahesa Moksin. Marisa Nagler. Natasha Naidu. Christian Natal. Neil Nodia. Kyle Nass. Bugai Niausi. Christian Wancha. Chi Elizabeth Okan. Samuel O'Connor. Shia Odukobe. Inome Offerman. Tosin Oke. Isadora Santos de Oliveira. Monica Onditsova. Tetsuro Ono. Ollie Ormiston. Bjorn Osen. Katarina Ottman. Xiao Xiao Pan. Tulsi Parida. Manasi Patel. Alexandra Perez. Juliet Perez Rubio. David Peterson. Wirawit Pipat Wongkasim. Armen Pogosian. Oliver Pollard. Shapnil Pradhan. Alex Pritchard. Kevin Quinlan. Shannon Rajkitko. Neha Ranchandanani. Ben Ransom. Philip Ralph. David Reedy. Carl Ridshaw, Kate Florent Ristroff, Nicole Karan Roshania, Paul Rowlinson, Mikhail Rozyanek, Patricia Russ, Aman Sachan, Abdis Salam Sal, Fuad Said, Saikat Sanyal, Vanessa Sikon, Neha Shetty, Pranav Sharma. Leo Shi, Andile Sibia, Nicholas Simpson, Sandeep Singh, Dharanidharan Sivagana Selvan, Adam Smith, Ajam Songalin, Mridula Sitaran, Grace Stevens, Arno Saint Germain, Václav Stindl, Cal Stock, Cassandra Sullivan, James Sully, Yao San, Saravit Benji Sanjinda, Keita Sujimura, Siddharth Swami, Caitlin Swiss, Yuki Tam, Kira Tan, Gig Onicha Tanti Wechwatiko, Giorgio Taraf, Asha Taylor, Gayanki Terashita, Caitlin Thompson, Colin Tierney, Melissa Tika Holiday, Lakshika Trika, Alice Traswell, Winnie Tuan, Matthew Tucci, Kanu Priya Tyagi, Usani Shamzashi, Ignacio Uyawa, Andrew Answorth, Francesco Valente, JJ van de Vijver, Miguel Velasquez, Matthias Vermeeren, Natalia Villavina, Desiree Voudunon. Mayor Wax. Jules Wagner. Ben Walker. Amber Wang. Alexander Wonkel. Stephanie Weber. Alexander Wien. Courtney Whelan. Charlie Wilkinson. Tom Williamson. Gregory Caleb Winchester. Evan Winget. Jinghan Wu. Lauren Shi. Yixuan Xu. Stel Yuan. Yiyang Jian. Shi Zhang. Jeff Zhang. Gloria Zong. Mridula Vasudevamurthy. Garang Majok. Rami Hamden. Congratulations to the MBA class of 2018-19. The Dean will now present the prizes.
What an amazing set of women and men, just amazing. But even among this amazing crew, there are a few that we'd like to recognize. The first is for the Dean's Commendation. Each year we ask the class to nominate students who've made an outstanding contribution to the life and community of this program. The whole community of students, staff, and faculty members then vote, and we award a small number of Dean's Commendations to these exceptional students. So I'd like to ask the following students to come up one by one and collect their Dean's Commendation. They are Julia Montgomery, Matthew Morgan, Ejim Sungaram, JJ Fundefier, Desiree Vavunden, We'd also like to take the time to acknowledge those students who have achieved the Dean's List on all possible occasions. This is an extremely impressive feat on a challenging and diverse program. So I'd like to ask the following students to come up and collect their Dean's List prizes. They are Maria Bernier, Reese Byrne is not in attendance, but let's give him a hand. Timothy Krupa. Mark Lee. Willie McVitie. Also not in attendance, but give a shout out to Muhammad Amar. Kevin Quinlan. Another shout out to Daniel Toe. Caitlin Thompson. Winnie Twang. Karnu Priya Tiaji. We now come to the J.P. Morgan Prize, which is awarded for outstanding academic accomplishment in the finance core courses and consists of a certificate and a prize of £3,000. The winner of this year's prize achieved exceptional results across the board in finance core courses, as well as other courses throughout the year, highlighted by their award of a Dean's List Prize just moments ago. And the J.P. Morgan MBA Prize is awarded to Reese Byrne, who is sadly not here. Finally, we come to the Said Prize, which is awarded in recognition of outstanding academic accomplishments and contribution to the MBA class and wider community. The winner is judged based on a combination of their performance in the core and integrative modules over the year and the impact they've had outside the classroom. This award consists of a certificate and a check for £10,000. I knew that would get your attention. This year's winner is in good company as a member of Pembroke College. The college, founded in 1624, has had many notable alumni in the shape of Samuel Johnson and J.R.R. Tolkien. Just moments ago, they received Dean's Commendation highlighting the positive effect they've had on the class, faculty, and staff throughout the school. Originating from South Africa, our winner has been an active member of the Student Council throughout the year, supporting both students and staff, most notably through the creation of the Phoenix Report, A True Legacy for cohorts to come. I am delighted to announce that the winner of this year's Said Prize is J.J. Fancher.
With the concluding remark, I present the Associate Dean for MBA and Executive Degrees, Kathy Harvey.
Is it afternoon? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Colleagues, guests, and friends. I'd just like to draw your attention to the program. It says here, 13:30 finish. I promise you I won't speak for that long. But it is a genuine pleasure, a very pleasurable task to be able to offer some final words at this important occasion. And to sum up, in what Peter has already said is just one of many rituals, but a very important ritual for all of us on your journey as Oxonians. So thank you. And just as you prepare to leave student life and begin a multitude of new challenges, I would like to take you back to the time when you filled in those application forms for your MBA place. Don't worry, I'm not going to bring anything embarrassing up at this point. Okay. But when you wrote those applications, you were asked to paint for us a picture of your ambition and your aspiration. To say something about your character, about your competence, and about your challenges as you saw them then. A lot has changed since that moment when you reviewed what you'd written, you checked you had the transcripts, and you pressed the send button. So think a little bit about that now, a year on. You have so many new skills, you have so much more knowledge. Perhaps you have new aspirations which you didn't anticipate a year ago when you filled in those application forms. And you also have a new branch of your family. You have an Oxonian branch of your family and a global network, a global support network to support you for the rest of your life. Each one of you here has made a unique contribution to the very unique ingredients which make any learning experience exceptional. A curious mind, a huge range of experiences and a willingness to share them, different lenses through which to view the world and through which you tested the theories and frameworks you were taught. And I'm sure that your individual, your unique lens on your MBA experience will be of benefit not just to you, but those who you help in future, those who you recommend to this program, those who you lead, those who you work with, those who you admire. Make sure you keep giving to the people who really matter to you. And on behalf of all of us, I would like to continue Peter's theme of the second T, the theme of giving thanks, and to thank you for bringing such a rich tapestry of backgrounds to our community. On your behalf, I want to make a special mention of all your class representatives this year, because it's a really daunting task to step up and to represent your colleagues. It requires leadership, and many of you did step up. You harnessed your individual talents to serve your friends and to serve all of us at the school. I don't know if you realized you were entering the SBS diplomatic service when you did that, but you were. And you really did an amazing job, so we all want to thank you. And also members of the school council. This was the first full year of the school council. Was started by your program director, Ian Rogan. And I know it was a very important thing for him. He felt that initiating this was going to be an important thing for the school going forward. So we're all really delighted that it's worked so well. And we hope that we'll be able to continue this in the year ahead. You've all been a huge source of support and insight for us. And we want to say a heartfelt thank you for that. As Peter said, we all salute the perseverance of your families. I just don't know how they did it. They must be looking forward to having some time back. So I can't possibly miss them out of my list of thank yous. And I just want us all to say one more thank you with a round of applause to your families. And on your behalf, to say another thank you. I don't think we can say enough thank yous to those who serve us, those who look after us and really care about this program. To all our friends and colleagues, who have been intrigued by you, have been interested in your futures, have cared for you over the past year. Of course, my faculty colleagues who have dedicated themselves to the vigorous conversations in lecture theatres and study groups, and who have shown great integrity and learning and interest in you. So I know you will want me to thank them. They've engaged you in countless debates, and they've provided some new lenses, I think, through which you could view your own opinions and your own world. I also want to make a very special mention to our head of degree programs, Farzana Sadat. She's risen to the almost impossible challenge of pronouncing over 300 names this morning. I really just don't know how she does it, and I'm just so glad it's not me. All your program managers and support teams, I can't mention everybody who has put today together, but you can see the kind of logistics that you have to deal with when you're organizing an event like this. The permanent staff at the Sheldonian, but all my colleagues who've given their Saturday up to come and be with you. And with apologies for those I forget, I do think it makes a difference if you can mention people's names. So Rachel and Harriet, Holly, Alex and Christian, from the program team, from the support team, from our project staff, Fraser and David. I know that Stuart is here with his team today, and also from exams, very important, very important. My colleagues with extra patience, Alison and Luke and Poppy. Everybody who's worked on the MBA program team. I can see some people whose names I haven't mentioned, but please don't feel missed out. It's just I'm frightened I might leave one person out by mistake. They've all looked after you. They've all guided you through the complexity of this institution over the last 12 months. And also I want to thank my colleagues who worked to make sure that this class was so special, who sought you out in cities around the world and encouraged you to apply, who helped you through the difficulties of the application system. Our recruitment and admissions team, led by Marielle and Charlene, but also I can see that Amy and Tammy are here today. And I just want to say that Amy and Tammy have, between them, made an incredible contribution to the diversity in our MBA classes, both helping us achieve Peter's vision of having over 10% of every MBA class coming from the continent of Africa, and also increasing the percentage of women in our class. So please thank them, along with everybody else. And looking towards the future, I'm delighted to welcome our new MBA director, Liz Starbuck-Greer, who's joined us for her first MBA ceremony this morning, and who will take up the baton along with Tim Galpin and Ho Yin and Michael Schmetz in leading this program to even greater things, working with all our colleagues across the school. So, Liz, it is a real pleasure to have you here today. She's returning to the school. She worked with us many years ago. So please encourage her on her way by giving her a round of applause as well. Now, I know I am coming between all of you and some fresh air and some lovely cakes and drinks at the business school, but I just want to take us back now into Oxford's history as we draw this to a close. Because when the scholars and the tutors of medieval Oxford colleges agreed to create a university, an institution to represent their many different colleges and their many different opinions and subjects, they recognized something very important. They recognized that the sum is always greater than the parts. So Oxford does pride itself on over 800 years of educating leaders like you to go out from this institution to achieve some remarkable things. They've done so because they continue to learn from their Oxford network, and now you are part of that extraordinary network. It does include presidents, prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners, but most important of all, it includes all of you. It includes your classmates, who will be your sounding board at the next stage of your career. And we wish you luck, and we want to hear about what you do next. So thank you so much on behalf of Peter and all of us at the school. And I know that we will look forward to seeing you when we go back to the school for our reception later. Good luck.
For the last time, MBAs, esteemed guests, please rise for the procession.
Well done, Mark.